and we're going to get a chance to do introductions, which I know can be a challenging thing because when you have more than 5 people, it does take a little bit of time, but we're going to do that. I'm going to get a chance to hear from the Washington Tourism Alliance and just see where things are at. We've been working on this for almost a decade now, and we're really fortunate to have this situation where funding has happened, and now we're following up on what we had been working for and advocating for that entire time. And this destination development workshop series is one of those first steps. And then we really want to hear from you about what you think this regional approach means to you. What are some of the assets that you identify that from the statewide level should be emphasized and promoted, and what needs more development? Where are the gaps? And especially, how can Washington Tourism Alliance assist with that? So that's the basic agenda today. Few of the key takeaways that I hope that we can get out of this is connecting the community to the tourism assets. Like I said, Washington Tourism Alliance. We also have supporting this workshop the Department of Commerce, and you're going to hear from Lynn Long in a little bit about what the Department of Commerce is doing on your behalf at the statewide level. One thing that Mike is very adamant about, and you'll hear from David Blandford as well, from the executive director of the WTA, is that WTA is there for support and to kind of have a statewide strategy and kind of compass point to help everybody in the state work together. But by no means is WTA coming in saying this is how you're going to do things. I mean, in addition to that would be impossible because nobody would listen to that type of strong arming. But more important is that you're the professionals and the creative people, and you're the locals that are going to have the best answers anyway. So what I'm hoping to do today is just share a few examples from other parts of the world that have taken initiatives similar to this, and maybe that will give you some inspiration or see some possible paths. And then, like I said, the goal here is to just start that conversation about when we're talking about the trails and lakes region, what does that look like, and what are some of those assets that you want to emphasize, and again, how can Washington Tourism Alliance support that? So on to that point about the region. There, we have a map of Washington State, and we have a whole lot of diversity throughout that state. And at some point, you draw a circle around various geography that makes sense from cultural perspectives, from geographic landforms, physical geography, to tourism assets, and to some extent even just shared challenges as well. And so that circle is drawn, and you got a handful of your larger cities and smaller towns, and a lot of beautiful country in between all of there, and that is what the WTA is describing as the Trails and Lakes region. So a big thing we're going to be talking about today is, does that make any sense to you? And if so, how can we harness that circle and work together to promote and again, the focus of this is to develop the tourism assets for this region. So as I promised, and again, a key thing here is that I'm here to share some things that might be useful and to try and pull things out that you're all saying and connect the dots if I can. But really, this is your afternoon and this is your region, and so we really want to hear from you and give you opportunities to participate. And let's start things off by just having you introduce who you are. If you represent an organization, or you run a company or work for a company, or if you're just a concerned citizen that's very committed, all of those are wonderful ways to participate. Or if you work for the government or a tribal nation or something like that, we'd love to hear what that is. But no need to go on a huge introduction. We'll have plenty of time to get to know each other in the smaller groups. So Mike, I'm going to turn over to you to just maybe call folks out and give them a chance to do their introduction.
I'll start with myself, Mike Moe. I'm the Director of Tourism Development and Strategic Partnership for the WTA. And Next, I'll go to Allison. You don't look like an Allison, but I will go there.
Yeah, I noticed I was Allison today too. That's my wife. I'm Alan Williams. I'm the sales and marketing director for Jones of Washington Winery. We're have tasting rooms in Wenatchee and also Quincy.
Well, thank you for being here. Diana Thibodeau.
Hi, I'm Diana Thibodeau. I work with Mike and Dave at the Washington Tourism Alliance. I'm the Director of Operations and excited to be here and see what we can do to help.
Matt Lyons.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Lyons. I'm the Executive Director for TREAD. TREAD is a nonprofit organization that tries to represent all things outdoor rec, and we work together to convene all the outdoor rec organized groups along with land managers, find efficiencies, collaborations, and hopefully money and projects get done.
Thanks, Matt. Morgan Eastman.
Hi, my name is Morgan. I'm with the Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce. I am the Event and Economic Development Manager.
Thanks, Morgan. Jerry Barkley.
Hi, I'm Sherry Barkley. I am the destination marketing person here for Visit Wenatchee at the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Jerry. Jessica Stoller.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I am the Marketing and PR Director at the Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Jessica. Charlotte Mayo.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Mayo, and I am with the Residence Inn by Marriott, and we will also have a restaurant, Orchard Bar and Bites.
Great. Thanks, Charlotte. Nikki.
Hi, I'm Nikki Pazzi with the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust. We stretch between Seattle and Ellensburg. We connect people with the outdoors and help to advocate for funding to get those projects done. But I am stationed in Central Washington specifically.
And a new National Heritage Area. Congrats.
We are, yeah, as of last spring. Spring before that. Time has no meaning anymore.
I feel that. Dave Blanford.
Hello, everyone. Dave Blanford. I'm Executive Director of the Washington Tourism Alliance. I work with Mike and Diana, and I'm just thrilled to have all of you with us today.
Aaron Todd.
Hi there, I'm Aaron Todd. I'm the owner of Downtown Bike here in Kashmir, Washington. I'm also the Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce with the Kashmir Chamber of Commerce. I'm also on the Board of Directors for the North Central Washington Economic Development District.
Lots of hats. Thanks, Aaron. Jen Tate, speaking of lots of hats.
Hey guys, I'm Jen. Jen Tate. I am in my little TWISP office right now. I am a marketing consultant for Washington State Tourism. I am with the Okanagan County Tourism Council and here in the Methow Valley. And I have other locations in Chelan as well. So I kind of feel like Chelan, the Methow, Okanagan County, and of course all of the state are my my stomping grounds. So. Thanks,
Jen. Renee Swearingen.
Hi, I'm Renee Swearingen. I am the Aniat Valley Chamber Chair, Chamber of Commerce Chair. I sit on the NCW EDD board and on the board of the Columbia Bridge Fire Interpretive Center.
Thanks, Renee. Lynn Longan.
Afternoon, I'm Lynn Longan. I'm with the Washington State Department of Commerce. I am the Rural Economic Development Manager, and I have oversight of all the small business programs in commerce.
Thanks, Lynn. Jenny Rohanestein.
Thank you. I'm Jenny Rojanasatian. It's a hard last name, and I appreciate you trying. My husband and I own 2 restaurants in Wenatchee, the Thai restaurant been around for 30 years, and Atlas Fair, which we opened last year. And then I also serve as the executive director of a nonprofit called Guada, where we focus on technology, entrepreneurship, and STEM education across North Central Washington.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Madison Ford.
Hi, my name is Madison Ford. I'm the Director of Tourism and Events for Central Washington through the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Madison. Gina Mueller.
Yeah, I am Gina Mueller, the Director of Sales for the Hilton Garden Inn here in Wenatchee, Washington. I also sit on the NCW EDD board along with the Cascade Flute board.
Great, thanks. Trina Elms.
Hi, I'm Trina Elms, and I'm the Events Director for the City of East Wenatchee.
Thank you, Trina. And why?
Hello, my name is Ann Young. I'm the marketing director for the town of Winthrop, which has a component of city government as well as chamber. And my family is also part owners of the Old Schoolhouse Brewery.
Awesome. Jen Weddle.
Hi, my name is Jen, and I'm representing Okanagan Highlands Alliance, which is a small conservation nonprofit in Tonasket.
Great. Tony Hickok.
Hi, Tony Hickok, Marketing Director at Mission Ridge Ski and Board Resort. I'm also the chapter president, central chapter of Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance.
All right, thank you. Jill Thompson.
Jill Thompson, I'm the mayor of town of Waterville and on our Main Street board.
Thanks, Jill. Mike Mock.
Hi, yeah, this is Mike Mock. I'm a president of the Brewster Chamber of Commerce, and I have a small business here in town, mock fishing stuff.
Great. Anna McCaddy. Anna, you're on mute.
Sorry. My name's Anna Caddy. I'm a small business owner up in the Manson area, hard cider company called Rootwood Cider. And also here just to learn a little bit more about agritourism opportunities and how to kind of bring that angle to our valley.
Yeah, I met Anna at the Tri-County Summit and forced her to be here because she has a great
Thank you for the invitation.
Alice Brown.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alice Brown. I am the Executive Director for the North Central Washington Economic Development District, as well as a board member for the Cascade Loop.
Great. Jill Thompson.
You already did me.
Oh, sorry, Jill. People are moving around a little bit here. Sadie Thayer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sadie Thayer. I'm director of the Kittitas County Historical Museum in Ellensburg.
Great, thank you. Rolene Crawford.
Hello. I am a member of several nonprofit events and also a member in Ellensburg in Kittitas County. And I am also a member of the Kittitas County Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
Awesome, thank you, Rolene. And finally, Troy Campbell.
Hello, Troy Campbell with the Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Troy. Like I said, people can moved around a little bit. So if I've missed anybody, feel free to jump in now.
Hi, I'm
I'm the executive for the Alliance in Okanagan County, as well as the a board member for the North Central Washington.
Okay, thank you. Who else?
Hi, Katie Shepard here, the Director of Marketing from Suncadia Resort.
Awesome, thank you, Katie. Anyone else that we missed? Okay, back to you, Dan.
Excellent, thank you. Wow, what a great crew. This is really impressive. What I really appreciate is just the diversity. You've got business owners and people work, managing businesses, and people with DMOs and associations, and people wear 24 hats, which seems pretty common. When you're in demand, people want to put another hat on you, I think. So thank you for all the work that you all are doing in that level. One thing I didn't highlight is that, granted, your region is huge, so it'd be easy to say that I love the region, but it is hands down one of my favorite places to be, from the cross-country skiing up in the Met Howe to the hiking in the canyons and the desert and bird watching all throughout the area. Just love it tremendously. So hearing from where you all are hailing from and the different businesses just makes me want to get on the road this afternoon. So maybe I'll see you later on. Moving on, I'd like to introduce David Blandford. He introduced himself, but I just want to give him an opportunity to give a little bit of update on what is going on with the Washington Tourism Alliance. And Mike Moe will also be filling in some of the gaps at the end of that in terms of the role that Washington Tourism Alliance is playing with destination development here in the state. So David, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks to you all. It's great to be with you today. Glad you came. It seems maybe a short history of WTA is in order. I know many of you are familiar. Many of you have helped advocate along the way. We appreciate that, but then some of you may be new. So really a brief history. Dan is right. We're coming up on 10 years, really since that initial crisis hit us when the legislature closed the old state tourism office, and the industry got together, rallied, and said, we're going to find a way to ensure that we have funding for a statewide tourism marketing program. We know we need it. Every geographic region needs it. And we began our advocacy efforts very robustly, thinking that it would take a year or two. It took 7 before we finally had a resolution. In 2018, we finally got some enabling legislation through the legislature and on the governor's desk that allowed us to combine some private sector funds with some public sector general funds, a 2-for-1 matching program. And shortly after that, well, it wasn't shortly, it was probably a few months after that, late in 2018, WTA was signed as the basically the state tourism office, the tourism marketing entity to take things forward. We began, just like the advocacy effort, very robustly and dove right into a number of programs. Got about a year down the road before COVID hit, but that hasn't stopped us from launching a number of initiatives. Our chief mission here is destination marketing for the state. So we are currently rebuilding our consumer website, reestablishing photo and video assets. We lost most of that from the old state tourism office. We're maintaining things that work, like our statewide visitor guide. We are continuing to do direct consumer marketing. We're in the market for a director of marketing, currently doing some interviews there. And since it's been 10 years since the state had a destination brand, we're midway through an exercise to redevelop that destination brand. I think some of you have been on some of the stakeholder committees that we've done. In addition to destination marketing, industry recovery and destination development just has to be a core focus for us. Development always was. Recovery now with COVID is just essential. We know from the U.S. Travel Association that the impacts of COVID-19 on the travel industry nationally are expected to be 9 times worse than the events of 9/11. And just about every industry pundit says between a 3 and a 5-year recovery period for the industry. We know then that we have to put a lot of resources toward recovery and development to go forward. So Mike will talk a little bit more about our destination development program. And of course, you'll spend the next few hours here discussing ways to move that forward. I'll just leave you with one thought here. Dan was mentioning that we do have that initial funding. It's helped us to really put a shovel in the ground here and get going and begin some programs. But we need more to really sustain that 3 to 5 year period. So we're doing some work with the Port of Seattle, about to begin a new joint recovery program with them for $1.5 million. We're going to be applying for some Economic Development Association competitive grants. And we have a request of the Washington legislature for a $12 million budget proviso for the 2021 through 23 budget. And with that, we of course appreciate any industry support. If you, what is helpful for us as we nurture these requests along is to have just simply names and affiliations of people who are in support of that. So if you are always welcome to shoot us a quick note and say you support that effort to WTA info@watourismalliance.com. You also can just reach out to Mike or to myself or to Diana if you know us, and you feel free. Anything works, and it's as simple as that. So we appreciate your support now as we have over the past 10 years. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And again, thank you for being with us. Support for economic development for rural areas is really one of the central tenets, for the Washington Tourism Alliance. So we're just so excited to kick off, this destination development program. It's been years in the making, like you've heard. And an important thing to know as we go through today's workshop, this is only the beginning. Today's event is really about bringing you all together, assessing, the tourism assets in your area, and I know you have a ton of them. Looking at some of the common challenges that you might face, and then talking about what's possible. To be clear, like Dan said, we're not here to tell you what to do. You guys are the leaders and the experts of your region. But over the past decade, you haven't had a state tourism office to support your efforts. And in that time, state tourism offices have evolved. It's not just about getting heads in beds, though that's still definitely important, but it's about holistically looking at the industry in the state and then supporting it the best way we can. So we want to help our regions continue to build our identities and help build experiences and stories to share with our visitors. And then it's our job to support those stories at the state level. And that support could come in form of educational workshops, grant programs, as well as tourism studios and regional visioning. So like I said, we're just really excited to be here, and we'll see where this conversation takes us. So back to you, Dan.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Also fortunate to be supporting this project is the Department of Commerce, and specifically Lynn Longan. And in conversations with her, she's highlighted it. Well, Commerce doesn't necessarily have a tourism tract. And when we dug in deeper, though, the work that she's doing and the work that Commerce is doing, but specifically her, is around small business development and support and training. And most of the tourism, in fact, I'd say the vast majority of tourism is carried out by small family-run entrepreneur businesses, medium-sized businesses at the largest, for the most part. And so that's why having Department of Commerce engaged with this industry through Lynn is so helpful. And so I'm just asking her to share a little bit about what she does and how that can support you folks in your communities.
Great, thanks, Dan. I'm happy to be here today. So I just wanted to give you a real brief highlight of some of our programs. The first thing I would tell you is everything I'm going to talk about is on mystartup365.com. I will put that in the chat box before I drop off later, but mystartup365.com. It's an online resource with lots of how-tos, tutorials, interactive tools for current and prospective businesses owners. So I was thrilled when you were introducing yourselves to hear how many of you have small businesses out there. That's great. Be sure and keep my contact information too. If you need something from the Department of Commerce, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my cell phone number on there. And it's a big job to provide services to small businesses and programs to small businesses all over the state. We can't do it alone. Our partners are the local economic development entities. And Ronnie, really nice to see you on here today. Many of our economic development partners, not only are they contracted partners with us, but many of them are very much in tune with the tourism industry and trying to promote the tourism industry in their regions. So it's really nice to see you, Ronnie. First of all, I'll give you a little bit of an update. I don't have much to share, but last Friday, the governor did sign into action a budget bill that included $240 million for small business grants. As I'm sure you're all aware, we've been pushing out small business grants since I think we started last April. Again, with a lot of help from those economic development partners, helping us get it out and trying to get it directly to the small businesses. But another $240 million. The only real update I have on it is I know they wrote into legislation, there's parameters around it. I know there's a group in our division that's working on what those specifics really will be. So how much are they going to actually do per business? How are they going to prioritize those businesses? What's the process going to be for applying for them? That type of thing. They don't plan on having it rolled out till probably late March is their target date, that they hope to have it live, and the monies have to be out our door by the end of June. So that was 150 million. If I forgot to say it, I did. $150 million for businesses to help keep their doors open right now, and 90 million of that is targeted to businesses that had to close from the governor's last executive order last November. And so it's money that can help them reopen is the purpose for it. So moving right along to the small business programs that we have right there, I'm just going to highlight a few. We have what we call an entrepreneurship academy. We did that in the midst of COVID. We filmed these films. I don't know if probably many of you have heard of Maury Foreman. Maury was my predecessor in this position, and he helped, we contracted with him. He helped produce these little tutorials that have, there's 11 courses, and they teach the fundamentals for first-time people that are interested in starting businesses. There's videos, workbooks, assignments, quizzes, and it's available, of course, 24/7 on demand. So we're excited about that. We also have a tool called Size Up. It's a sophisticated planning and analysis tool that you could run endless business scenarios in an interactive virtual environment. So a business can go in and say, I want to open a coffee shop in Wenatchee. And they can pull all kinds of information around the area that they're thinking about to know how many coffee shops are there, what's the average cup of coffee go for, how many employees do they on average have per coffee shop, how much do they pay their employees, so that you can get a competitive analysis to know whether you're going to be competitive. And maybe find out that maybe downtown Wenatchee isn't where you want to open it. Maybe it's East Wenatchee. So not to start a competitiveness here, but it's a really great tool to give a business information that they may not have had in the past. And again, it's all online. It's free to the user. Another program that we started, we actually did a pilot in 2019, but we turned it all virtual during the COVID, is Scale Up. It's a hands-on series that's of trainings for businesses that's designed to help the business owners strategically plan and identify new opportunities for growth. It's 1 day a week, 2 hours online via virtual platform. It also has homework assignments. There's study hall, and we've recently put together a Scale Up alumni program where after people are graduating from the Scale Up, they're going, what's next? We want more. So we put together this alumni group and are bringing them together for whatever resources are out there and just networking. And last, I want to tell you about Thrive. Thrive is used to be called Economic Gardening. It's a program that's very, very similar to economic gardening, what we used to have. It provides access to a business to national experts, analytics, best practices, and that allows C-suite executives and business owners to address internal and external issues that are impeding their growth or their expansion. It's very specific to that business. It's not a classroom setting. It's that business that meets directly with national experts all over the country to help them with their specific business issues. And I think that's about it. Again, go to mystartup365.com to learn about all the resources.
Excellent. Thanks, Lynn. And that is just a wealth of information and resources, and so important for the economies of our communities throughout the state. So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for all your hard work. A part of this workshop is to also make sure that everybody knows who is working on their behalf throughout the region. And so without putting people on the spot directly, I wanted to open up a space for those who are directly representing the local destination marketing organizations, as well as I know chambers are filling that role as well in terms of tourism marketing and business development. So again, not putting anybody on the spot, but I wanted to give you an opportunity just to give an update about the work that you all are doing, especially after it's been such a tough year. So feel free to jump in. I won't force anybody. But
I can go ahead and force Jen Tate to go first.
What do you want me to focus on? Sorry, I have too many hats on.
Just give us a little brief update on what's happening over there in Okanagan County.
Yeah, so I think like many of you, we felt more love than what we were ready to handle in the Met House, especially. But the entire county, you know, we were prepared, we were braced for massive decline in lodging tax revenue and visitation, but instead we found that people were kind of flocking here. So, you know, we also found a lot of impact at trailheads and especially, you know, kind of the top 10 places to see or top 10 places to take a selfie ended up getting, you know, incredibly impacted. Land managers were frustrated and overwhelmed. Traffic was kind of crazy. So you know, and I know that that's repeating a lot of things we've seen across the state, as well as, of course, the hospitality industry suffering massively. It's kind of been a whirlwind. I do think we have some opportunities to really do some deep thinking about how to let people experience those top 10 things that they want to experience in a way that maybe has got a lot of intention and mindfulness behind it. I don't have any kind of prescriptive answers, but I think now is a time we can do that planning and that work. And people would be very, very, very interested in pursuing it. So yeah, it's a perfect time to be having these conversations.
Hey, Mike, I can speak for the Leavenworth Chamber.
Great.
Hear me okay?
Yep.
You know, I think lessons learned from a year of this, but starting back in March, you know, we're already changing policy, changing things, directions, budgets, making those changes from everything from, you know, our downtown being closed all this time and looking long term how we might want to do that into the future, to how we, the chamber, can spend our dollars that can really be the most effective, especially coming off of a very an amazing fourth quarter with the county lodging tax dollars. There is some opportunity to do some really cool things, and we're already working towards those things and being able to offer some sort of relief and assistance in some of our natural resource assets. So more to come on that, but it's really made for a lot of changes. There's clearly been some winners and some losers in our local economies as far as what properties, what type of businesses are doing gangbusters, and then some that are feeling the pinch. But overall, in Leavenworth, you know, the last quarter and the first part of this year, just those lights are worth their weight in gold. I will tell you, those Christmas lights, because they provided a lot of people throughout the holidays and into the new year, that really helped our community a lot. So for us, that's that's been amazing and something we will continue to invest in for our community. But right now, yeah, we're looking ahead. We've had some very exciting phone calls even this morning talking about some new programs that we're looking at running this year, and we're going to need feedback because we're going to need to know how to spend those dollars the best way. The last thing we want to do is spend them redundantly or spend them in a way that why are they spending it on that? Why didn't they ask us? We want to ask those questions, make sure we spend the money the right way. And like I said, there's some cool new programs coming that we're really excited at the Chamber about. So more to come there.
Thanks, Troy.
I can echo that work, Troy, and Jen too. You guys are both kind of within our region as well, out in Kittitas County. And we too have found that the impact wasn't as bad as we were projecting from a national level, just because a lot of our travelers are in state, and a lot of people over on the west side in Pierce and King counties in our main markets were actually interested in coming here for a little bit of an escape. And so thankfully, we're a collection of small rural communities, and each one is different. Each one has been impacted differently, and infrastructure wise have struggled in different ways, but we've really kind of refocused on supporting businesses and connecting with businesses, member or non-member of our chamber, to see how we can help provide grant funding, connect them to resources, help with economic recovery, as well as help push out their hours and their updates and reopenings to our travelers. Our messaging has been really focused on just updating travelers on what they can do here. We've also been focused on reopening events and meeting with events around our county, both venues and coordinators, and working with the state to find inconsistencies within the reopening guidelines and kind of challenge those and see how we can get around them to reopen our events quicker and save a lot of our venues and our coordinators, but still have it be in a safe and responsible way. And that's kind of played into our lodging tax process as well. Again, we see a lot of opportunities there in that sector as well, Troy. So good to hear that that's a commonly shared win. And then, Jen, you had mentioned the pressure on natural areas. This is something that we have felt before COVID, and COVID really punctuated what a major issue this has been. In fact, right before COVID, we restructured our county destination marketing campaign to be all about that, about visiting and recreating responsibly. It's called centralwashingtonoutdoor.com, and we have social media, as I know a lot of you guys have email campaigns and blogs. And we've been able to work with our core partners and a lot of the recreation focused groups around our county. Thank you to everyone, especially the Mountains to Sound Greenway, for being such a key partner with us on that. That way we're able to update travelers on how Snoqualmie Pass is and new snow parks available, trailheads that are closed, tips on recreating responsibly. And so that has been an even higher priority for us this year. And I see that to continue being a major project for us. So if that can help inspire any ideas for other regions, please feel free to use it as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Madison. Jerry or Alice, you have it?
Yeah, in the greater Wenatchee area, we have partnerships have been key. So working with the Cascade Loop, working with TRED, working with the port, our regional port authority, the counties and the cities has been key in trying to have a cohesive message and something we were confident in putting out to the public, as well as how do we stand up our local businesses and who's best suited to support them with grant funding, and who's the best one to kind of allocate that and go through that process, and how can we best support everybody. The interesting thing is we lost 2,100 jobs locally. That's not that interesting. I didn't mean it that way. But what is interesting is January's occupancy in 2021 is higher than January's occupancy in 2020. So that is interesting, given that we did suffer so greatly locally. But that to me is a thank you to Mission Ridge, because there are key focus areas for us in 2021, and Mission Ridge is one of those pillars of strength in our community. That investment in putting the new lift in is, even if we didn't talk about it at all, the word's going to get out all by itself. And those are the kinds of messages that are going to really help this community right now. Our focus is Mission Ridge, Rocky Reach Visitor Center or Discovery Center will be opening in 2021. And that's an experiential benefit of our renewable energy here in our region. And it will be open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that will clearly be an attraction. Our trail development is still a focus, an absolute focus for our future. And Omi Gardens will open this year in 2021 and was closed last year. So those are the things that we're focusing on, and seeing what we can do to help the areas that were most hard hit, which includes the service industries, whether it's restaurants, theater, the wineries, all of those were really hard hit. And now our work is to figure out how to do that. My question, because in thinking about all of this, is as we move forward, Mike, I would be interested in knowing what kind of opportunities are available. For instance, if you wanted to set up a wine association for your region, but you didn't really have the resources to do that, or just coalescing groups together to kind of help themselves. So that's a question that I have going into today for sure. But that's kind of where we're at.
Well, and that's why we're here, is to talk about those questions and to try to, create a common vision into how to address those questions. And one person who's not here, who wish she was Annette Pitts. Obviously, she's a strong, important voice in your region. I will tell you, though, that she did participate in yesterday's destination development program. So she's definitely on board, and but she was on a photo shoot today, so she couldn't make it. But anybody else who wants to give us an update before we move on?
Hi, I'm Renee with the Entiat Chamber, and as one of the smaller communities, we don't have a lot of the Wenatchee Leavenworth draw. We were ripping pages out of everyone's playbook. We've been a very small event-focused chamber in a very small town, and we had to kind of think of things as COVID-proof. One of the best things that we did, and I agree with Troy, the lights in Leavenworth are worth their weight in gold, and we threw a bunch up in Entiat, and it was great. We had beautiful response, and even just the mood lift. We had people sending cards from Wenatchee saying that when they drove past, it was just good to see. People can't get out and congregate like they had been. So moving and shifting from that, our recreation has been huge. Trying to get people to know that Entiat is here. We have trails up the valley. We have lookouts that are getting to be open back up for rental. We have a cooperation with a local fire interpretive trail, and hopefully we'll be building out some bigger and better trails so we can attract more people. It's just really good to see that everybody here has been able to adjust, and they're all coming together, and it's all cooperative. This is really encouraging. I'm glad we're here.
Awesome, thanks. Any other updates? All right, Dan, back to you.
So the first thing that I think is going to be useful for this group, again, you all are, some of you have been working cross region forever, and some of you maybe thought you were on your own and didn't realize you had all these other folks here that are supporting you and that are excited to work with you. And I think it's helpful when you draw a circle around a region to start thinking about what it is that defines this region. Is there a unifying story or a unifying message that you think that folks that live within here and work within here can relate to? And again, this is not something for me or WTA or anybody else to tell you what it is. It's for you all to think about it and work together. And there isn't one right answer, but I think having the conversations will open up some new pathways, new thinking, new creativity. So this will be our first breakout session and give an opportunity for you to work in smaller groups, meet other people. It'll be completely random. So it's happened in these sessions where you find the three people you work with closest, but that's unlikely. So basically what we're going to do is Mike's going to send you off into the Zoom breakout rooms. And what I'd like you to discuss is the following. What are key characteristics that unite this entire region? So again, that circle on the map, it's a very diverse region, of course. Discuss what tourism looks like in the Trails and Lakes region. And then choose the top 3 kind of aha moments, maybe even just 1 or 2. If there's 1 or 2 really big aha moments that you all had in having this discussion, we'd love to hear about it in the larger group. So you might want to use your phone, take a picture of the screen, or write down some notes, because when we break up into these smaller groups, you won't be able to see what I have here. And I know from personal experience, you get into the small groups like, what the heck were we supposed to do? And that's perfectly acceptable to have that question. But if you take a note or write it down. So again, what are the characteristics that unite this region that we've defined, and what does tourism look like in that region, both kind of currently and to some extent even visioning for the future? Mike, anything I missed?
Nope. I'm going to go ahead and break you up into groups of 4 or 5 here. So hopefully this works.
Oh, and in terms of timing, let's maybe, what do you think, 15 minutes, Mike?
Yeah, so we'll return at 1:10.
Okay, very good.
Great. Thanks for coming back. Go ahead, Dan.
All right, thanks everybody. So just wanted to jump, I turned off the screen sharing so we can see everybody's faces better for this bigger group discussion. We're curious to know what some of the outcomes of these conversations were. Again, the questions were, what are key characteristics that unite your entire region, and discuss what tourism looks like in the Trails and Lakes region as a whole. So maybe a representative of each of the smaller breakout groups would be willing to unmute and start the conversation.
I can start. We kind of talked about how a few key things were, number 1, a hometown feel with each one of our destinations. That it really was a lot about culture, and a lot of folks seek out our area because of, like it was mentioned earlier in this meeting, that personal welcome, that feeling of connectedness to our region, and the slow living kind of mindset that we have. Another one was convenience, and the fact that folks could come over just for a weekend trip and have plenty of time to relax and enjoy our regions. And that the whole time here, when they're driving from anywhere in the state, it really is a scenic drive once you're over here. Whether it's driving through the mountains or orchards, or even through just empty fields, a lot of folks who commute on the west side might drive for hours and might not get that, as they're kind of surrounded by urban environments. And so that's definitely attractive, aside from just being in a centralized location, and proximity wise, the fact that Eastern Washington and Western Washington can both kind of meet in the middle in our region to find all of that as well. And then agritourism, that's huge. I'm sure that that's going to be brought up by other groups too. But we found it to be kind of a common thread between our regions, and something that's continuing to grow.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and for being brave and kicking us all off on the group discussion.
Of course.
I love, you need to join all my workshops.
Yeah. Had too much coffee today.
No. You're an important asset to our team.
I'm going to hit the next group. Probably the biggest things that came up is Highway 97 is something that connects all of our region. It's that one vein that feeds us all. And with that, you know, our close proximity to the people who are coming from the west side, we're that first net that catches those people that come into our region to really explore and entertain in the areas that we have here. Obviously, we have the Four Seasons, which is a good draw, typically better weather. But probably the greatest thing is we have such a diversity of what we have to offer in this area. It's not just the outdoor recreation through, you know, hiking, camping, skiing, biking, but we have the wineries. We have the, you know, these old town homes, homestead areas that have great opportunities for unique antiques. You know, the agribusiness that's been around for decades, that have been in our communities, that make up our communities, have been a draw in themselves. And so, you know, we felt that those were probably some stronger points of why, you know, we are who we are and what make us great. The question is, you know, why I think why we're all here today is how can we all maximize on that? What can we do to, you know, make people not just think about, hey, what are we going to do, but be excited and look forward to that next opportunity to hit North Central Washington.
Points. You're taking notes, right, Mike? Awesome. Who else would like to jump in and represent your team?
I will jump in really quick. We had 5 of us in our group. I think we're hearing the same things, so that's great. We're all landing on some of the same themes here, but we talked about that small town hospitable charm that we all certainly share, and that I think in today's day and age when people are trying to get out and slow down their lives a little bit, we have that in spades over here. So it's something that we can offer and brag about for sure. And the accessibility as far as, you know, we are kind of auto driven, I guess we called it, not so much you're not going to fly necessarily here, but you're going to drive here, and turning that into a strength because people don't get to see the kind of beauty and landscape we have and that we offer. And so we thought that it was a great strength. We talked about agriculture, and the being surrounded by so much accessible public land, and that recreation is a theme that we all see as well. And then of course the sunshine, we always talk about being the sunny part of the state. Well, it's a big deal. So we want to talk about that too. So that's kind of the highlights from our group.
Wonderful.
So I can go ahead, Dan, from our group, or did I talk over somebody? Okay. So our group identified, so what are the assets that bring us together, and clearly trails and lakes are one of them, but proximity to high quality outdoor assets. So meaning that we have within our area the opportunity for some of the highest quality outdoor recreational assets. They're very close by and easy to access. And we have we're connected. Those connect our small communities, and our small communities all have the shared same values of appreciating those assets and wanting to maintain them and take care of them. What tourism looks like is that we live here and we love it and we don't want it to change, but we know change is imminent and people are also learning to love the area. And so our as we look forward into tourism, how do we protect our assets and maintain our sense of place? Right now, tourism is very seasonal. So there's times when we have way too many, and then times that we don't have enough. So it would be great if we could spread the tourism out. So for instance, you know, it's similar to a ski season. Wouldn't it be great if that many people were here in the summer also? But identifying areas that are overwhelmed, and then how do we spread the people out more? So let's say everybody's taking, the point that was made was everyone takes a selfie at Kolchak Lake. Well, there's lots of other lakes. So what are we doing to promote some of those other lakes and get everybody off that one photo of, or the intention of, I have to do that one, or I haven't really experienced that area. There's lots of areas to experience here. And then how do we support our landowners and our land managers who are overwhelmed with the amount of traffic and pressure that they're getting on those trails, and support them so that they still are a valuable asset to those of us who live here.
Excellent. Really good points. One thing I was going to say in the last statement was just about the drive aspect. Is that's something to think about as well when you're putting itineraries together and connecting the dots, and how those communities that are in between some of those destinations could tap into folks that are passing through. And what you just brought up about the overuse in certain places at certain times, and how just communicating that message about where else to go. And interesting, when I was explaining to someone about the workshop I was doing today and describing the region, I think that there's a lot to learn about the lakes of your region. Of course, everyone's heard of Lake Chelan, but there's, as you just said, Kolchak Lake, and so many other hidden not hidden to you, but hidden maybe to the travelers. So really, really good points. Would like to go next?
I don't know that there's much our group can say that hasn't already been covered. Outdoor recreation and agritourism being two big things. One thing that came up was the character of the rural communities being something that draws people, and the role that chambers, I suppose, especially have to play in educating visitors about how to be responsible visitors, so that they're not infringing on the goodwill of those communities that they come to soak up and to relax in. You know, there's, especially this last year, a huge issue with trash and with parking concerns, and just a lot of stuff on local community boards about, you know, misbehaving West Siders. And that's a hard thing to counter once people have it in their heads. So it can be really helpful to get out in front of your visitors. And I think Katie Shepard with Suncadia said it really well also about, you know, how they can communicate with the people who come to stay with them before they disperse into the towns.
Community buy-in is huge in tourism, because if the local people, either it doesn't matter whether they aren't actually benefiting or if they perceive they're not benefiting from tourism, they're both basically the same. Tourism is going to be looked at as being a bad thing, and those people who want to engage with travelers and bring in tourism are part of the problem. And so all those points that you bring up are essential, both just for our own values that we want tourism to be positive, but also if we want tourism to continue, we need to communicate. That's really important points. And I think that's part of the role of bringing the whole destination together like this, is because you're all dealing with very similar challenges, but maybe in different ways. Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. Anyone else want to jump in? These were all really good points, and it's okay. I mean, Nikki, I appreciate how you said a lot of the things that we talked about had been discussed. That's actually really important to say out loud, that even though you're in smaller groups, you all are resonating with what each other is saying. That means that circle isn't quite as arbitrary as it could seem. It means that maybe there is actually a lot in common between all of you. Okay, anybody else want to jump in? Last call.
I was just going to say the one thing that our group mentioned was the being able to tie the smaller communities like Eniat and places to get people to spread out more and really get the word out. So it would be, you know, throughout these other areas too, because and one thing that they said was that we're not competing because they're going to stay in Wenatchee, they're going to stay in Leavenworth or Chelan. So these other places, getting people out there that will just spread out the people and give them more things to do.
Yeah, really important. And that communication, that messaging region-wide helps do that a lot easier than just one person standing up on top of their roof through a megaphone trying to encourage that. And that's, of course, I think where the Washington Tourism Alliance can come in as well. That messaging around what parts of the region do we want to promote more? What parts of the region do we want to promote differently to attract a different audience? Really good points. One thing I think is also really important about tourism is that it's not all about fun and games. And in fact, a lot of times people are traveling for very serious reasons. I mean, this pandemic, of course, getting out and having that space to stretch out and to see the beauty and to just feel more positive about the world. But I think also in connecting people, whether it's regional from parts of our state to other parts of our state, but also people from other parts of the country and the world, and just learning about all of whether it's the culture or the values or the natural landscape or all of those things. That's a really important part about tourism, is connecting humans. And so I think that's really important as well. Welcome back. Thanks everybody for sticking around. So I think, first of all, it was great starting off with just what you all thought of what your regional story is and what connects you all together. And that was really insightful for me personally. And now what I'd like to do is kind of flip the script a little bit, and just, now that you have some of those ideas in your head, think about some other destinations that have gone through similar paths that you have, and similar places where you are, and consider what strategies they took that might be useful for you. And just to kind of set the stage, we've been using a term called destination development, and that means different things to different people, and it may be a new concept for some of you. And basically what we're talking about is the idea that in order to have an experience and a series of experiences to market, it's smart to think about what it is you actually want to be the outcome, what experiences you want to happen in your area, what experiences you don't necessarily. So in terms of diverting attention away from crowded trailheads or places that the community doesn't want to be exposed to travelers. And similarly, thinking 5, 10, 15 years into the future, or even further, what are some of the assets that are going to take time to develop? Some of those assets are, of course, tourism attractions and experiences, but it's also the human resources as well. In order to have small businesses to promote, you might need to have some work on entrepreneurship training. And so destination development is folks from a destination coming together to strategize about how they want to grow and build on top of the assets that you currently have. So I'm going to present 3 different case studies for you. Again, these are just ideas that for me, in looking at different parts of the world, places that have some degree of similarities to your region, or the methodologies that they chose, I found to be particularly something that could be useful at the stage that you're at with uniting your larger region. So what you'll do is just listen to the presentations that I'm about to deliver. 2 of them are me just describing a region, and then the third one is, hopefully, if it works, a video that you can watch from a destination. And then at the end of that, you'll get an opportunity to go back into some small groups, hopefully with some new people that you didn't work with last time, and compare notes. So while you're listening to me give the presentation, take notes and write down any ideas that you have. So some of those questions you might want to consider are, how does your community compare to the communities that I'm presenting? And are there any ideas that these communities have tried and have used that you're excited to pursue or to consider for your region as well? Okay, so I'm going to jump in there. So the first one that I would like to describe is a community in Quebec, in Canada, in the province of Quebec. It is, so you can kind of see the bigger picture in terms of where it is in relation to the United States. And where it is in North America. And then zooming in a little bit, you can see that there is a large city just to the south, or relatively large city to the south, Quebec City, and then a really, really large city to even further south, which is Montreal. This region is on rivers and waterways, and of course the St. Lawrence Seaway comes through it as well. So just a little bit about the geography, not mountainous, but not flat either. So some hills and some rugged terrain within there. This region was a powerhouse for industry for many, many years. And so the three specific industries were forestry, aluminum. And they actually mine aluminum and smelter aluminum. And then of course, agriculture is also an important part. You know, diverse agriculture, like for example, maple sugar bushes, maple syrup making. So as with many rural places that depended upon an extraction economy, a combination of factors have led to a decline in those industries. So the first is just the resources depleted, and so not necessarily having as much to extract. And then many of these industries have increased mechanization, so the jobs are fewer for both of those reasons. And to some extent, there could be some regulatory aspects as well that have reduced the viability of those industries. So recognizing that there are a lot of people in those regions that depended upon those industries, the provincial government of Quebec came up with a plan they called Plan Nord, and that would address this region of Quebec and what exactly they would want to do in order to replace the economic and cultural aspects that were being depleted with the loss of these industries. So one of the things they did is they identified tourism as a key way to tap into in order to keep jobs in the region, as well as preserve the culture and cultural aspects of those small communities in the rural areas. So two specific tourism assets were identified. So the indigenous and cultural tourism is really strong in this part of Canada. And so many associations, or an association was formed for the indigenous tourism in Quebec that has now been linked up with the National Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, and other cultural tourism as well. So as you know, in rural areas, there's incredible culture, whether it's food and crafts, to just the history and the stories of those areas. And then the other major tourism assets were identified around ecotourism and adventure tourism, which are huge in this part of Quebec. So here's just some images of this area to give you an idea of just some of the both outdoor as well as cultural riches of this area. So again, the photo of the skier, you can see that it's not necessarily a flat area. It's not necessarily mountainous, but it's not flat either. So what happened here? Why was this is a success story that I am sharing with you? Well, as with any destination development, it's not over. It's an ongoing event, and probably the minute you think it's over is when things start going the wrong direction. But in this case, the success that did occur, keys to that success was around partnerships and collaborations. So a combination of different groups working together. So that could be the university coming in and building out a training program. That could be the government providing some funding for training and for community meetings. That could be nonprofits that are working together to promote the region. And then, of course, the small business is key. If there weren't entrepreneurs and people willing to start businesses, and then all of those entities working together, none of this would be possible. The other key aspect, and this is what we talked about right before the break, was just engaging the community. So who needs to be at the table in order to both on the positive side help to uplift initiatives, and also just on the preventative side to make sure that people aren't brought in too late in the game, that they will end up derailing all the work that you've done. So this community worked with the community, this region worked with the community to do many community meetings, and again, that's another way to grow the entrepreneurship pie, is by showing people what's possible, getting them excited, planting those seeds. They also worked really hard on the infrastructure piece. So this has to do with thinking about some of it could be around the outdoor recreation piece, which would be trails and maps and ways to connect things. But also they, in order to focus on the aluminum history, they actually started an incubation program for a aluminum bicycle manufacturing company to connect through their heritage or their history of economic history of being an important aluminum mining and smelting location. They've connected to that by helping to build this aluminum bicycle factory. So again, a lot of tourism related businesses aren't necessarily tourism facing, but they are supporting the industry and being supported by the tourism industry. But a key aspect here is that when you learn about the Saguenay region in Quebec, what they're going to be telling you is not about some chain restaurant that happens throughout Quebec, but maybe more specific cuisine that is happening that is from that region, or the topography that is with the combination of the St. Lawrence Seaway providing a certain climate and the cultural heritage that defines the people of the region and their history and so on. And so they really focused on what is distinct and unique of this area when they started to build out these experiences. And then when you get to that point, then you need to make sure that you have humans who can engage with it. And that's the beauty of the tourism industry, is that it's still very human focused. It's obviously our travelers are people, but the people that work with the travelers are people. And so, it's not a job that can be exported overseas specifically, because it's your community that is the attraction. It is your region that's the attraction. But you need, in order for it to benefit your local people, and you need to make sure that that you invest in the human resources into the training, and whether that's for the workers themselves or the entrepreneurs. And then finally, after all that, then really having a robust marketing program. And by this point, they have they have really world-class experiences to share with their marketing. So the marketing becomes a lot easier at that point. And that's really the goal here. It's with WTA is a destination marketing organization, and in order to support the marketing of the state is to do destination development and work with all of you to have these world-class experiences that you're excited to share. Okay, so that's Saguenay, Quebec. In Canada, let's move to another continent, another hemisphere, another part of the world, and this would be the New Zealand, South Island of New Zealand, and Fiordlands National Park. And so this national park was established in 1952. It is well known for having rugged granite mountains, pristine mountain views, huge valleys that are carved by glaciers, and incredible cultural heritage as well. Some of the attractions are in this region are these walks that have been identified that bring you through the mountains or along the waterways, and they call them the Great Walks. That's how they've identified them. And here's an example of some signage for one of those walks. Of course, notating the important that there is a bathroom ahead. Key way to deal with people's Maslow's hierarchy of needs is letting them know that there are restrooms available. So just a view from the trail on one of these walks that we're discussing. Different species of plants, but I've been in places in your region that I feel like I have that exact same view. In addition to building out the experiences, there's also the ability to bring the experience to the consumer. And I think that is when you're talking about outdoor recreation and adventure and ecotourism, a lot of times the challenge is how you might have world-class experiences, but how does that necessarily benefit the community? And in a lot of cases, it's the opposite. I'm sure, especially during COVID, when many of your trailheads were being clogged, and several people brought up the trash and the issues, you might be thinking to yourselves, like, this is people coming here isn't necessarily a good thing. And so that holistic aspect of how does the community benefit from travel, and a lot of that has to do with the infrastructure that's built. So in this case, a clearinghouse was created to put all the experiences, that guided experiences, in one location, so that if you were a small tour company, you didn't have to invest in the same marketing that is needed to attract your customers. You could put your programs all in one place. Here's a view of one of the huts that were built in this region. So throughout this national park, rather than expect everybody to camp throughout, which there's plenty of great camping, but not everybody wants to do that. And also traveling to another country can be, and bringing all of your gear can be a bit of a burden. So they constructed these sustainably built huts that people can stay in, and then they can walk from hut to hut. And this was all happening within the national park. Another view of the trail that brings you through some of that stunning scenery. Again, I am fortunate to travel to many places in the world, but when people say that their home is the most beautiful, I quietly disagree with them, because I know that you all have incredible vistas like this in your region as well. I think Washington State is definitely one of the most beautiful in the world. So it's important. So was this successful, this effort? It took a lot of work. They spent a lot of money on it. A lot of people committed themselves to it. So what came from it? The total economic impact on the country of New Zealand, not just this part of New Zealand, not even just this the South Island, but the entire country, was a $228 million per year increase in money that was brought into their economy. And so that's the beauty of tourism. Tourism is an export that when people come to your region on travel, they're coming from outside your region, and they're bringing money that wasn't there before. And so that's money you can spend on schools and roads and on your own retirement and salary. And speaking of that, employment, 1,755 full-time equivalent employees for the tourism initiatives that they upgraded within this national park. That's a lot of people. I mean, I think this is kind of on that extreme of major investment, but the point is, you build something and you get some benefit from it. And that bottom number there, the household income, what that means is the amount of money that each household basically saves. Not each household, that's all households combined save $68 million per year, basically because that tourism is an export. And so that's taxes they didn't have to pay to get the same services that they have. And that's one of the reasons why tourism is an economic benefit. So how did they get to this success point? Again, this is a very major initiative, and there are a lot of things going for them that would be difficult for us here. But a key part of that is that public sector built on the success of private entrepreneurs. And so it is a national park, meaning that that's the government, but the government is not in the business of being entrepreneurs. They're in the business of managing public land or doing whatever else the government does. It's the entrepreneurs and the small businesses that needed the support in order to actually bring the economic benefit to the communities. And they really recognize that the outdoor recreation and just the tourism in general is world class. And again, that's why my editorial on your region is that I've been to New Zealand. It's amazing. And I still really love visiting the lakes and trails region of Washington State. So it is also world class. This is key from a tourism perspective, especially if you're an island nation like New Zealand, where people are going to have to travel from long distances to get there. The connections between destinations to the access points for the tourism experiences needs to be well thought out and connected. And that, again, is a key reason why doing this kind of region-wide destination development combined with at the state level is so critical, because if you all can save a lot of effort by working together on certain communication strategy or infrastructure or that sort of thing, you can get a lot more done that would be much more attractive to a wider range of travelers. Their infrastructure was robust. Again, it's not easy to build a hut-to-hut system. It's something that probably took them years to get to the point where they're able to do it. But once they built it right, and it was something that is resilient. This is a controversial subject for our country. Here is the idea of limiting usage. I mean, we have very limited places in Washington State where you need to get a permit, like the enchantments, for example. But we're facing some challenges with overuse, and at some point, it might be a good conversation to have are there ways that we can limit the use of some of our overloved places, and so in the case of New Zealand, they had to do that because these places wouldn't be what they are if they had the throngs of travelers that wanted to go there. Again, I already talked about the infrastructure and making it accessible to the travelers that you're trying to attract. And then finally, the important point here is that the national park is a national park, but there are towns throughout the entire region that benefited from the investments that were made in this national park. And so I think there's a lot of parallels with places in Washington State, specifically your region, where you've got national, mostly forest land and BLM land, but public lands in general that are attractive to people from outside, but it's how can the communities benefit from it? And that's really I think the destination development piece. So that's the second of three of the case studies. Now, the third one here is from our sister state to the south, Oregon, and they started doing pretty robust destination development starting right at the beginning of the 21st century, and right about 2005, 2006 really started to ramp up. And this video that you're going to see, I think, is from 2014 or 2013.
What is Oregon? What is our Oregon story? What is your community story? My story is about the land that I'm standing on right now. This cattle and hay ranch, this is my story. And I get the incredible pleasure of getting to share that story with visitors from around the world.
I can get tired and walk out my front door and look in 360 degrees and find it inspiring.
I think a lot of young people would like to live here, to come and raise their families and be here, but there's not a lot to offer in terms of employment. Wheat ranching was the big industry that employed people at one point in history.
We had witnessed how the populations were dropping here, and primarily because there's really nothing for these kids to do once they've graduated high school. There's really no challenging jobs that are available to them, and we lose most of them. We have a unique area here. It's on the map, and it's well traveled, but it's not well known.
John Day is this very long river. You have these communities that are almost 200 river miles apart, but we feel like we're one big community along the river.
The John Day River is our most valuable resource here. It provides sustenance for the crops, for the cattle, and right now it's providing economic encouragement because of its resource as a tourist attraction. Tourism to me is a positive thing. I think it's really where the biggest growth is going to be in the next 15 to 20 years.
In 2010, Grant, Wheeler, Gillum, and Sherman County tourism-related businesses came together, realizing that there was an incredible opportunity to create the John Day River Territory as a destination. We applied to Travel Oregon to bring in the Rural Tourism Studio so that we could really merge the vision of the 4 counties into one.
It's 4 counties that all run all along the John Day River, and they're pulled together now with different things, with brochures, with advertising, with just keeping each other informed, with getting grants for different projects, a website, all that to promote this area. We all work together for one goal, to put this place on the map.
The John Day River Territory brand is about ambassadorship and really ensuring that our communities are prepared to embrace the visitor. From the moment that they arrive in the John Day River Territory until they leave, you want every part of that to be connected. In February of 2013, Wilson Ranches Retreat was contacted to see if we would be interested in serving as Oregon's first Tough Mudder venue. We knew without hesitation that the economic impact for the John Day River Territory would be absolutely phenomenal because you're showcasing Eastern Oregon. You're able to invite these incredible individuals into your communities for an event weekend, knowing that if they have an amazing experience, they're going to want to return with their families. Tough Mudder is a 10 to 12 mile obstacle course that was developed by the British Special Forces.
The obstacles were from difficult to painful to
excruciating.
Yeah. They had to go through electrical shock, tunnels with mud and water in the bottom of them. There was no competition. All the participants helped each other.
Tough Mudder, Oregon had approximately 5,000 participants and 1,500 spectators.
We were overwhelmed in this restaurant, and that was 25 miles away.
Before this effort, everybody was on their own page. The John Day River Territory is trying to coordinate so that we're all on the same page.
The relationship that the businesses now have, it's not about competition, it's about what we can do to all support each other so that those visitors have an amazing experience and are excited to return. We as Oregonians have such an incredible opportunity to host visitors from around the world into our homes and our lives and what we love. What is your story? What is unique?
I encourage tourism because I think when people come out here, they get a new perspective on how things operate and what impact this small community and the river corridor has on the rest of the state.
Being out here is a feeling that I can't describe.
because it's so magical. We're here late summer and it's hard to keep the fish off.
It's our joy when people come and see the area because we love to share it, and now we also have an income sharing it.
Offer honest hospitality. Don't put on airs, just be who you are.
It's about creating an environment for memories.
Okay, so again, that's from Oregon, 2013, 2014, I think is when that video was produced. And it was a culmination of work that was done by Travel Oregon in that region. They referenced a term called the Oregon Tourism Studio, which is basically a workshop series that Travel Oregon developed working with destinations. And the idea is to get that the folks throughout the region together who come up with a shared vision for what they want tourism to look like in their region, identify what's standing in the way between where they are now and where they want to get to, learn content about how to grow and develop and build that, and then they set an action plan in motion. And then at the state level, they continue to support the region, but it's driven by the local experts and the stakeholders within that region. And so in terms of a potential future for Washington Tourism Alliance, that's what Mike's talking about when he says there could be future workshops and future work in that capacity.
Right, and a lot of that is supported by grant programs from the state level in Oregon, and could be done here too as well.
Exactly. Okay, so on that note, what I'd love is for you all to now, with those three examples, again, there's hundreds of other ones out there, but those were just three that I thought might be appropriate for your region. Break into smaller groups and compare notes that you took or aspects that you took note of in your head. How does your community compare to the communities that were presented? And were there any nuggets in there that you're excited to pursue? Any ideas got sparked just by seeing that video or hearing about these other regions? So Mike, I'll turn it over to you to break people up into smaller groups. But I guess before we go, are there any questions about what we're doing? Okay, sounds like we're in good shape. Mike, if you could please.
All right, here we go.
Well, speaking about talking a lot longer, who would like to go first and share a bit about what were some of the aha moments from your discussion?
And I'll go first with our group. And I think the biggest thing is we as a region have tons of great gems that are undiscovered. And I think the biggest challenge is each and every one of us is trying to do it on our own. And I think the biggest ahas that we saw through these videos and the case studies is they realize that we can't. We need all of us to get together and to share our lessons learned, our successes, our failures, and to promote one another as a region versus just our independent selves. And Jill, the last person who spoke, is like, we have all these things. We need to bring all these different groups together. What can we do to be able to do that, to do it efficiently and effectively, to bring in, the Parks and Rec, the bicycle alliances, the winery groups, the housing and hotels, and to do more than just partner, but to have more experience like we're having today, to be able to say we need to share what we know and promote one another.
That's
Yep.
powerful. That's amazing. I don't know if you meant to like this, Aaron, but to me, I heard both a bit of on the front end of we need to do this together, but on the flip side, the fact that you are all together right now and embarking on this, it sounded very empowering what you were saying as well, like optimistic and call to action. That's what I heard from you. I don't know if that's what you meant, but that's what I heard. Yeah. Who else wants to jump in? That was a great start.
I think our group probably echoed that a lot. It's the concept was to collaborate, all of us work together so that dollars can be put together, videos can be put together. So it's, Okanagan County, and here are all the places, not just what people mostly think of, which is like Winthrop, or in Chelan County, which is right next door to where I'm at, Chelan, Lake Chelan. So if we all work together, then all of us can be exposed and the money all works better together as one effort. The other thing they were mentioning, somebody brought up, was the Cascade Scenic, Washington State Scenic effort. They have a video on the loop, and they are talking about doing an expanded version of that. So the ball's rolling in the right direction, but I think we just all need to figure out a way to work together, communicate, and pool funds.
Great example.
I can jump in here. Our
Please.
group kind of talked about, a lot of similar concepts, but also just the fact that, there's so many unique traits to the area that we live in. We don't have just one thing that's drawing in, tourists. We have so many different great things about this area. And then something we were kind of excited about moving forward is just educating not only, all of these groups about our struggle points and learning what everyone else's struggles are, but also educating the guest when they come into town on how to recreate responsibly, because a lot of people, obviously want to do the right thing. They just don't always know how to recreate responsibly.
I can jump in next. Oh, sorry, my phone rang. I can jump in next really quickly. The only thing I would add to that is the opportunity to cross-pollinate. There were 5 communities in our group. One community didn't even have a hotel. So lodging tax dollars, the ability to fund something, but this great opportunity that when you're here, what about this community? Or if you love doing this, the ability to know more about each community and how we can cross-pollinate.
That's great. And finding those strengths that one community has, whether that's having the lodging available, but maybe next community over adds experiences or has a tour company or has something like that, and that could draw more or the right or higher value, or however you define success in terms of attracting your travelers. Good point. And also, Morgan, I just wanted to say I appreciate you use the concept of recreate responsibility. We're moving. I don't know. Maybe we've moved beyond the place where travel is a right, but it's a privilege. And if I want to come to your community and be there, it's a privilege that I get to do that. I'm not entitled to that. And I think that consumer education at many levels is key. And I also appreciate the optimism that I do believe that most people want to do the right thing. And so if we catch them before they do, I mean, it's similar to if you have kids, it's the same thing. If you tell them no after they've done it, it tends to be harder to take than if they knew ahead of time what the rules were, and then they are happy to follow along. So both of those really good points, and thanks for sharing that. Who else wants to add to the conversation?
I will. My group also kind of talked about how powerful the storytelling was, especially in the Oregon video, and how the first step to tourism is really working with the locals to identify what makes the area so special and showing off those stories, showing off the people behind the businesses. We kind of talked about how in a lot of urban areas that are different from us, the tourism departments might not care as much what the locals think, as they're just a little more disconnected. I'm using broad statements here, but we just noticed that especially in our area, the people have often lived there for generations and watched the area change so much. And they're the ones who have the stories to tell about the unique attributes of our areas, and how in modern day tourism we can use, like Katie from Sankaty had mentioned, like trainings for her front desk staff to be able to refer people to our destination marketing campaigns, or to one good resource where they could filter where are the dog friendly locations, where are the best family friendly locations, and that really those are the locals. And oftentimes people aren't Googling what are the best things to do in a certain area, but they are wanting that local perspective. And so just punctuating the power behind that, and doing what we can as a DMO, not just to get heads in beds, but to also educate our locals on the front end on how they can be a resource for us as well.
That's a really interesting point. I like the frontline training, about the region. I think that's cool. Cool point.
Well, the other interesting point about that is just, I mean, especially when you're not even specifically a tourism business, for example. I did a training in Hood River many years ago for basically anybody who was on the front line of interacting with people. And they even sent in Oregon, people fill up your gas for you. And so they've sent the people at the gas station, because if you're just driving through Hood River and need to get fuel, and the person who pumped your gas happened to just be super friendly and excited about Hood River, you're probably going to come back to Hood River. And so I really appreciate that community focus, that we're all in it together. Good points, Madison. Thank you. Anybody else like to share?
Our group kind of ended up talking a bit about the land managers, the public lands. We were talking with, in the Quincy Lakes area, there had been, they were struggling keeping them open. They were closed. There was vandalism. Just, and then also we did talk, and this is something I think Jerry and I talked, no, this is something Jessica with Leavenworth and I talked about in another call, but just the fact that this region, I believe the Forest Service's supervisor's office in Wenatchee, I believe manages most of the region that we're talking about in this group here. And I believe that from what I've heard, many of us have individually tried to get some traction with our local rangers and had basically heard crickets, and that perhaps this is something I wanted to put into your back pocket, Dan and Mike, as we work further, that we might have a lot more effect if we come together as a whole, because it's very hard to get their attention. And then ditto with with Fish and Wildlife and DNR too. Like as this region, we matter a lot for all three of those entities in terms of our natural resources and what we have to offer. And I think we need to work collaboratively to get any kind of traction there at all. And there's a lot to be done.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yes, please.
So for those of you that don't know, so TRED got started about 3.5 years ago with the idea that we have to stop being siloed under the outdoor rec umbrella. We now meet quarterly with what we call our ex officio group. And that is 40 plus members. So think of like Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, Run Wenatchee, Rowan Paddle Clubs, things like that. Maybe more importantly though, it's representatives from the Forest Service, DNR, BLM, Fish and Wildlife. And when we come together quarterly, that's where we start to coalesce and collaborate and find efficiencies and things like that. In fact, I sit on a monthly meeting with 3 ranger districts every month. So the Entiat, the Wenatchee River, and the Chelan Ranger District. Their boss, who's at the supervisor's office, and her boss, who's the deputy chief, sit in as well.
Great.
So TRED is trying to do what you just talked about, Jen.
That's
and we're
great.
getting a lot of traction. In fact, we just signed a challenge cost share agreement with the Forest Service so we can share costs and things like that. So TRED formed under the idea that we have to come together as an outdoor rec community, and we knew the obstacles with the land managers. And so far we've gotten a lot of traction, and we just continue to grow. There's communities that are reaching out to us saying, how do I get a TRED in my community? How do we form an MOU so we can all work together on grants and agreements and things like this? Because at some point we have to recognize that, at least in Chelan County, 80% of the land is Forest Service managed. So you have to deal with the rules and regulations that you have to deal with. And as we move into other counties, you know, it's a little less restrictive, more BLM, more state land, but they still have their own rules and regs. So it's going well. And I think organizations like WTA, and even at the state level with like John Snyder and his committee and the governor's office and things like that, we're starting to get statewide recognition now. We're getting region recognition, at least from the Forest Service. So I'm being reached out to by Region 6. It's growing and it's good. And being a part of this community right here is only going to be more effective as we incorporate agritourism and small businesses. And if you haven't already checked out the TRED Map app, we started an app for basically what you were talking about, where you have to have that frontline person who knows the local issues. If you go on that app today, it will tell you exactly what the conditions are, because people that are using it are telling you that the parking lot is full, or a tree is down, or it's too muddy, or it's great and come and here's what I did. And we're going to expand that to try to highlight other areas that, like, it's too crowded here, but here's another area where you could have a similar experience. So it's being done, and we're about 3 years into it now, and we're just continuing to see that need being met. So I just wanted to pop in and kind of piggyback on what Jen just said.
Excellent. All right. Well, really great conversation. Again, that's really the motivation of doing this type of work is connecting you all. And all right, so we're now at that stage. You know, we're not going to solve everything in this one afternoon, although it's pretty impressive how far you all have taken this. It's inspiring for me personally. But just the last section here is, where do we go from here? How do you build this? How do you grow from it? So one thing I want to acknowledge that I actually learned this in a workshop similar to this that I facilitated in Snohomish County. And a friend of mine who is the president of the Adventure Travel Trade Association used to live in that community. So he came to my workshop, and he brought his wisdom from doing this type of work around the world. And he said, in order for successful destination, you need to make sure you have the right people at the table. And so, you know, the recent example of making sure the Forest Service and the BLM are on the calls every month, great example. But also, if you don't have the small businesses there, how are you supposed to grow your economy? And then what about the DMOs and the chambers, who are the nonprofits or the NGOs? And so really being thoughtful about who you're bringing together, recognizing that when the right people are at the table, certain actions can happen. Another example is when I was doing some work in Lewis County around agritourism, all of these ideas were being brought up, and the folks in the room are like, yeah, but we'd love to do that, but our county plan, our comp plan outlaws it. And thankfully, one of the county commissioners came to every single one of those meetings, and she said, well, you know that we're redoing the comp plan right now. So just because we invite, you know, not we, they invited and encouraged their local county commissioner to show up, she was able to share valuable information that all the things they wanted to do with agritourism actually were more likely to be possible now, because they were changing the rules, and she happened to be at the meeting, so she was drinking the Kool-Aid along with us. So really thinking about that when we move forward. And as Mike says, this is just the beginning of this work. And you know, there's going to be more people that you might want to invite in. Who's not here? So think about the government. So obviously those federal land managers, but also state land managers, tribal nations. There's tribal land and also just cultural heritage that is one of the unique components of your region. Do you have relations with those governments? Small business, it's very difficult. I used to run a small business, and I was fortunate that my business partner at the time recognized the value of showing up to meetings like this. But it was a struggle. Yeah, and when I would be away at the meeting, I'd come back, and everyone would look at me like, "How come you weren't working all day?" But the small businesses are key to that conversation, and I think we are doing very well in this group with some of those NGOs as well, the nonprofits. So that's one thing to think about in terms of who needs to be at the table. Other things to think about in terms of strategies for moving the process forward, and many of you have said this already, is tapping those local resources, the local people who have that knowledge, and that's the next component here, is harness that knowledge. I think it's really important to keep enthusiasm alive. This is not easy work. Some of these tasks of turning, you know, the Forest Service ship around, that takes a lot of in some cases years, and you know, as the example of monthly meetings, those aren't easy to hold and conduct. The other side of building that enthusiasm is the community buy-in. Again, if the community doesn't acknowledge that tourism is good for them, either because it isn't or because they just don't see it, they're going to be opposition, and then you're fighting, and that's not fun, and it's going to impede your progress. I think in the end, what you end up getting is local ownership and pride. And that's in many of the success stories that I've encountered around tourism. And I think you brought that up when you commented on the Oregon video, is that it sounded like the people were very proud of what they've created, and they were very proud to share it with other people. So again, think about who's not here, and a big part of that equation as well as just concerned citizens, people that care about their community, and figure out ways that we can make sure they're coming to subsequent work that we're all doing together. Okay, so the final thing is kind of a can of worms that I want to be a little bit careful going into, but that's what is missing. Where are those gaps? What needs to be in place for any of this to work? And because Washington Tourism Alliance is hosting this meeting and is embarking upon this work, they would like to know more about how they can support you in that as well. So the final breakout is to have you discuss, now that you've had that time to talk about your regional story, now that you had time to learn from the case studies, what are some of those shared assets, and then specifically, what are the gaps from harnessing those assets to being beneficial to your community? And then second to that would be, what are ways that WTA, the Washington Tourism Alliance, can support your region to fill those gaps? So are there workshops, are there trainings, are there press trips? What are ways that you could be benefited from WTA going forward? Okay, very good. We'll send you off, and let's see, I think, Mike, what do you think, 15 minutes, or is that too little for this exercise?
I was gonna say, let's go to 3:15 on this one.
3:15, okay, very good. And if you get, give you some extra time and maybe work out some of the things that we forced you to, the conversations we forced you to quit last time. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you at 3:15.
Thanks.
Here we are.
Welcome back.
Boy, that wasn't long enough.
Sorry.
We were just
your initial instinct was better than mine, Mike. I'm sorry. Well, let's start the conversation here. And of course, this is just the beginning. So I think there'll be plenty of more opportunities for this group to get together and discuss these concepts in the future. But I'd love to just get a first go of what was discussed.
Well, I'll jump in. So in our group, we talked a lot about, sort of the gap is really organization and communication between all the folks doing similar things in different areas. And we talked about the idea of needing sort of a North Central Washington Tourism Association. And, I think formalizing and making something have a little bit more infrastructure, having staff is always a giant deal. We can get together and meet once a month, but unless you have somebody that has some obligation to get and responsibility to get something done, as in staff, things tend not to get done as fast. So what does that look like? I mean, I think that there's different possibilities. I think WTA, you have a sort of a natural position to influence that. I think funding is probably always the biggest issue there, and I'm not really sure how, what's the best way. I mean, I think there are some mechanisms locally like TPA, which is the Washington's Playground. Maybe we can all partner with our own counties and come together, merge multiple TPLs, as it were. But then we also talked about the idea of, this is a specific region in Washington state, and WTA is the Washington organization. And I'm not sure, and forgive me for not knowing, but if you guys are going out sort of a more larger scale campaign to draw people to Washington, but how great would it be that if you guys were the center of the association and people that maybe the executive director of our local North Central Washington group was also either participating or managing other regions too, so that when you guys go out with a full Washington state message, it's cohesive and not disparate and not a bunch of silos as well. So you could be marketing Washington state as this amazing, diverse playground of desert and mountain and water and ocean and forest and all the things that we have, metropolitan, winter, summer seasons, things like that. So yeah, that's what we talked about.
Doing. That's exactly, that's the message that we're trying to put together now. And just that conversation, that's why the branding is so important, to really create that original Washington message, because we are diverse, but we're also, there's something about us that really kind of brings us together as a state. And so it's really finding that message and then trying to create that cohesive message. One thing in Oregon that they have that we don't have is they have 7 regions, and each region has their own regional DMO. And so you have the state DMO, you have your regional DMOs, and then you have, the local DMOs. And I'm not sure how possible it would be to recreate that structure, but the idea is to really help create those regional identities, encourage the collaboration that I'm already seeing. I mean, I'm going to call on Aaron and Anna here in a second to talk about what we were just talking about in our breakout room. But there's just so many opportunities for collaboration, and I think that our job at WTA is to help foster that and then support your vision there. Okay, Anna.
Great. I came into this session because I'm interested in agritourism. So Mike kind of brought back up that concept of agriculture and experience economy. And in my case, I'm hoping to bring people in to do orchard tours and end with hard cider tasting. But in some of my research about agritourism in general, it doesn't seem like there's a central hub for agritourism information in Washington state or generally any sort of cohesive promotion. So that definitely has been identified as something that, could be formed and with a cohesive message, especially because it's so, agriculture is so apparent in our region.
one thing I mentioned in the Tri-County Summit that I think rang true is that Washington State is a state of makers. You know, we have amazing, from oysters to apples to everything you can think of. And there are regions who have developed those food trails and the agritourism products. You know, there's the food trail on the Lake Peninsula. They're working one down in the gorge. And it's kind of creating those individual products. And then it's our job then to also bring it together to create that cohesive story that then we can share out. But I think you guys have just an enormous opportunity in your area to create that story. And Aaron, who owns a bike shop in Kashmir, was saying that, boy, he'd love to be able to, you know, send people on his bikes to go, you know, do tours of orchards.
Well, see, that's the key, because I think, yeah, Washington State's second most diverse agriculture producer next to California, I believe, in this country, and tourism often coincides with peak production time. So how can producers like farmers and farm owners benefit from tourism without being excessively burdened by all the challenges that might come with it? Well, and how could local communities tell the story about how the agricultural story is an important story and diverse and many different layers within that, and support local businesses? Bike tours is a great way. And so I think that's that collaborative piece that is so important about what story do we want to tell, who wants to tell it, how does it benefit our community in addition to the economic benefits. So I really appreciate the conversation. And Jeff, I think your point's leading us off with really thinking about this. Maybe it's not next year, but is it 5 years from now that there is something more substantial working on behalf of those who are within that circle on that map? I think that's a great goal to be thinking about. And like Mike said, that's something that is on the radar at the state level. Sometimes those initiatives require it to be grassroots to start, even if Mike thinks it's a good idea, because if it's grassroots to start, it sometimes can be even more possible because it's coming from you, not from him. So really good points all around. And Anna, agritourism is definitely I'd love to just talk more about that with you just in general. So, and I do have some resources I'd be happy to share outside of this session. But I think without a doubt, having that be one of the key aspects of what your story you're telling, it would be huge. Who else wants to jump in and share about?
I can, but things we talked about. Our group was kind of basically thinking how, if the WTA is going to do a Washington push on advertising, then will it also do like an Eastern Washington, maybe a North Central Washington, and eventually this sifts down. And what we got down to is, how does somebody go find stuff at that point, right? So you decided to go to North Central Washington because you know of one spot, but how do you find more things? And we, no offense, but really said that people are not going to go, oh, I'm going to go to a tourism site. And they're not going to think that way. They're going to say, I need to see something that says this area and what is there to do.
Need to lead them to Matt's tread mat.
There you go.
Well, I think the point is that you need multiple access points. Some people do miraculously still call up Washington Tourism Alliance and want to be sent a physical guide, which I don't even know if you guys do that anymore. But back in the day, you used to have to
375,000 copies of our visitor guide every year.
Yeah.
And which is crazy. I understand, but and people actually do use our website. And if you create, if you create access points that are engaging, you can make that happen. And then the idea is then to funnel them to you. right? And so maybe if you have your local DMO or your regional DMO, it's funneling them to your business, and there could be a couple of layers to that, whether it's partnering with TRED or it's partnering with the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce or whatever it is. I mean, that is the idea behind a state DMO and in sharing that message. And even more than that, it's really bringing people to the idea of that Washington is a destination that I'm thinking about going on vacation to, and bringing them. That's really what it comes down to. Our biggest job is that bringing people to Washington and letting people know that it's not just Seattle. It's it's really much more than that. And then trying to help you all share your stories, because we just have so much potential in Washington State. One thing I used to say when we were trying to pass legislation, you're talking to somebody in Chicago and they've heard of the Oregon coast, but they haven't heard of the Washington coast. They've heard of Crater Lake, they haven't heard of Lake Chelan. They've heard of Victoria, but they haven't heard. So there's real, opportunity that we have to really to package our story and tell it and make it something that people think about when they want to go on vacation.
Excellent. Who else would like to jump in and share?
We haven't shared our group.
Please.
And ours was more about filling the gaps between the well-touristy communities and the non-touristy communities in our region. That we need to have the community buy-in to promote each other for dispersal to avoid the overuse of certain trailheads, for instance, or certain bike paths. But it's knowing and connecting, having a way of connecting all our communities in the region-wide, rather than just one county or one city, or siloing, which is where we're at right now, or siloing by industry, like the agritourism or biking or skiing or fishing. Everybody's got their little silos. How do we connect all those throughout the region, so we know how to share the wealth a little bit?
Excellent. Thanks, Jill. Thanks for sharing. Definitely, the modern traveler is excited to do more than one activity for sure.
And when we're talking about the food trails and agritourism, it's not just agritourism. If you're creating a food trail that brings people up to Waterville, and then they notice that there's a cool museum there, they might stop in and do that. It's just really about creating, again, different access points for people to engage with their community.
Who else would like to share? Anything that was missed or the gaps need to be highlighted so Mike can frantically take more notes?
Oh, sorry.
Did Madison?
Just one thing from way long ago. The co-op opportunities for advertising, I think, will be super helpful for a lot of folks that don't have those budgets or need to make their budgets more robust. So if any of those opportunities come back in the future, once campaigns are identified and those kind of things, I think that would be super helpful.
They're coming back for sure.
Great. Jen, were you about to say something too?
Yeah, Madison, did you or anybody from my group jump in from our group? I had to go deal with somebody.
I used the restroom. I don't think we did. Do you want to touch on that really quickly, or should I?
Sure. I think Madison, we were talking about how cool TRED was, and then also the Washington's Hometown app lady who we've all heard from, or most of us have. And Madison brought up a really good point that WTA should really take some time to do some to do some looking at if we wanted, if there was something that was to be truly useful, it really should have a statewide component, statewide presence, be vetted and actually encouraged at a statewide level for it to be really effective and to be actually something useful. And so I think that that's really worth taking a note of and talking with TRED about, and the scalability aspects and what it would take, because I do know that Matt Howe is talking with TRED and has been working with them, but they're not up and running yet. And I think it's been, I mean, there's a scalability issue that we would really need to dig into that would be, but could be really interesting and really, really compelling. Then the other thing that came up was that, Mike, I think everyone on this call, if you could send them the links to the analytics data that we have from the state level with the tourism data, and then the C-source opportunities that we have, just because it did come up from members in our group that they need to document the return on investment, and that the commissioners are constantly asking for proof of this and that, and that any and all information that we have would be really helpful to make sure that everyone knows where those resources are. And I thought there's enough new people on this call that some people may not know that we have some resources available, and we should share that with them. So that's all.
Yeah, but some of it's available and some of it's an opportunity to invest.
Yeah, both. Yes.
That we help subsidize.
That we're subsidizing, yes.
Right. And to go back to TRED, and maybe Matt, you can answer this. Do you guys partner with Washington Hometown for your maps?
Yeah, no, we're not. I do know about Washington Hometown, and I think it's a valuable resource, a huge data set for sure, and almost too big in my opinion. And the reason for that is because I really like the local homegrown feel. When people come to a town, they want to know what the locals do and where the locals go. And so I love it from a data standpoint, but we're not partnered with them. We really focus on that local feel. What we're really trying to do with our tourism right now is even highlighting small businesses that support the trails. So we just launched an advertising campaign. You won't see it on the app if you download it today. It's in beta form still. But the idea is that you come to pick a town and you enjoy the trails and you use the app, and local small businesses that support trails and outdoor recreation are then highlighted on the app. So we say, why don't you're going to stay in this hotel, you're going to stay and have a beer, you're going to stay and eat some food. We recommend that you go to these 3 places, and here's why. And if they want to dig into the story, they can find out that these places are the reason why these trails and these trailheads exist. And then they feel better because they're not going to pick up a shovel and maybe do some trail work while they're here on vacation. I mean, if they do, that's great. But more likely, they're going to feel better about buying that beer from that brewery because they know that that brewery supported the trails they just played on. I don't know that Washington Hometown goes that hyper-focused.
They do. But the difference is they did launch an advertising campaign. The difference is that yours is live, which helps DMOs with the infrastructure issue and the pressure on a lot of our natural areas. So yeah, I would just reiterate that, Matt, your services are needed. And I think WTA could play a role in having one preferred vendor, if you will, for us to refer to, because we've worked with Washington Hometown. She's based out of our area. And the struggle is that people come into our visitor centers, maybe they'll download the app because there's a flyer up in our visitor center, but who's going to do that when it's a weekend trip and then try to figure out the user experience on an app that they've never used before, and then they're just going to delete it anyway, when it could be something like All Trails where you have an account, you have reviews, you can look at other people's experiences as well. So I think that could be really valuable if it was kind of got the stamp of approval through the state and we all were using it on a statewide level. And I don't know what the costs are with that, but even perhaps financially supported or subsidized in helping us kind of roll that into our budgets. So
yeah, and that's exactly where we're at right now. We built the app to be scalable, to go community by community. We've gotten a lot of traction that way, and we really want it to be that grassroots effort that supports the local community. But it's an app that when you're driving from Wenatchee to Waterville, it doesn't change. The only thing that may change is those local businesses that are highlighted and where you should spend your tourism dollar. But the app works across the state and eventually the nation, or however big this goes. I'm not worried about that yet. But just so you guys know, it is scalable. We designed it specifically to be scalable by community. And we're really stuck in that spot that Madison, you just spoke to, which is having the money to develop the consulting to go community by community, or to develop the app community by community. That's exactly where we're at right now. So Mike, I feel like you and I have to have a meeting. That's what I'm hearing.
And me, don't leave me out.
Yeah.
Matt, Julie keeps on telling me to call you, and I haven't done it yet. Julie from the bike shop. She's like, "You gotta talk to Matt." Gosh,
What's taking you so long?
I know. I'm sorry. I'm like, hey.
So, as cool as I think the app is, and I think it is, kudos, Matt. I think that what I like best about what you've said here is the organization and framework that you have built to coordinate with all these different entities and all these different people to make change happen, whether it's a bike trail, getting out to more rec. I think that could be a template for how this could become a better run organization. That to me is.
And to speak to that, if you think about TRED, we really have two arms right now. We have our organization of TRED, which was really built to meet the need of all things and all stakeholders and bringing all those silos we talk about together, and our ex officio group of 40 plus members, right? That's the organization. The app is a digital extension of our mission and our vision, and it meets that need of bringing everybody into one place, as a community calendar or whatever you want to think about. But it also meets the need of the land managers because they don't have good signage out there, right? The local joke around Wenatchee is come to Wenatchee and recreate, but make sure you get a tour guide because you're going to get lost. Well, you don't get lost because this is signage in your pocket and everybody has it. By putting it in Spanish, by having, security alerts, letting people know there's avalanche danger right now, or there's a power line down, or whatever it is, it just meets the need. We did some COVID work with the Wenatchee Chamber when COVID first hit, trying to educate people on how to recreate responsibly during COVID. Here's what you can do, So TRED has two basic levels. We have the organizational level of how do you bring all these people together as a community, and then we also have the app that supports it as well.
Both useful, but I want to hijack your framework.
I'd love for you to hijack my framework. I feel like all the chambers should be at our next ex officio meeting.
Make it so. I think we're doing closing thoughts and we didn't even know it. So who would like to jump in and just kind of sum up what we did this afternoon? It was a lot of dedicated time, and boy, did you guys deliver. Really impressive. Would like to say just a message, a parting message about this, what this group is doing, where you hope that it can go next.
Okay, I'm just gonna say. I just want you all, as we're working on, as we're working collectively, I just want you all to know. I know it feels sometimes that there's a huge divide of mountains that separates us from the other side of the state. But I want you to know I've been working, coming from TWISP, right, the MetHow, and then working at the statewide level with regions across the entire state, and we really do feel a sense of solidarity, and then every region across the state shares a lot of the same difficulties and the challenges, from down in Long Beach up, Bellingham area, the San Juans, across the entire state. We really are more alike than different, and we really share a lot of these qualities that are coming through in this meeting. And I absolutely love the people that we are across the entire state and here in this region. Sorry, Dan, I know that was a little bit floofy, but I just had to say it.
I think that's a perfect closing thought. Nice work, Jen. Thank you for doing that. Anyone else want to jump in?
I'll jump in. I worked on the private side of this issue for 16 or 17 years now, and this is the first time I've been involved in this kind of discussion, and it impresses me, and it's not lost on me that that's never happened before, which is really surprising. So I guess, not to be overly dramatic, but thanks for putting this together. And I think it's actually very valuable. And to me, while we've all been working hard to try to do our thing and to try to work together, because I think everybody that I know tries to work together, is we haven't had this this larger scale perspective of how much we are all in the same boat. And so for the first time, I've seen that, and I think that more collaboration, more discussion, and more infrastructure is what we need.
Sounds like a plan to me. And I think what this comment and then your previous comment in the last section, Jeff, highlights is that it's a two-way street. I think there's usefulness having that statewide coordination, having people like Mike and Diana and Jen and and David, who are helping to coordinate. But if it doesn't have the grassroots energy, like from you and the folks who sent you the invite, who thought that you should be on the invite list, for example, and if it doesn't have that grassroots energy, I think that then it loses a lot as well. So it's finding that give and take in terms of what can be useful at the statewide versus what needs to really be driven by local people. So really good comments for sure. And as Mike says, this is just the beginning of this process. And so that will be coming up in a survey that you're going to receive. What do we do next? Where do you want to go? And continue on with these conversations. Excellent. Well, the good news is that we are ending a little bit early, which is always a positive thing in my opinion, for people who've dedicated time and are tired of staring at a screen. But the conversation was incredibly rich today. I mean, my privilege is I get to learn from you and get to hear your stories and your ideas. And I'm really supportive because I love your part of our state. It's one of my favorite places for sure. And I wish I could be out recreating in it right now. The now what is the next step, because we don't want this energy, we don't want this coordination to fall by the wayside, of course. And so I'd like Mike to just jump in and get the last few words in terms of where he envisions WTA taking this potentially, how you all can engage with it going forwards. And while he's talking, I'll just put up my contact information. So if you wanted to reach out and provide any suggestions or feedback to me, I would appreciate that. So Mike, tell us where we should go next.
Yeah, well, first of all, again, thank you so much for coming. I mean, I hope you all got a lot out of this. I know that I got a lot out of it. It was fascinating and just a joy to talk to you all. So this program, we're just getting launched. One thing that would love to have you do is support. We have, I think Dave mentioned that we have a proviso in the budget to support tourism to $12 million. And if we get that $12 million through, boy, this destination development program can be even that more robust. And so if you'd like to lend your support to that, to advocate for that budget proviso, you can send me an email at WTAinfo@WATourismAlliance.com, and we will add your name to the list of supporters to that budget proviso. Where this goes from here, we are doing this similar meeting in all 11 of our regions to really hone in on what is needed kind of throughout the state, and then what is needed, specifically for each region, because every region, while we share a lot of commonalities, do have different things that people need. And then it's creating that full destination development program. It could be in the form of tourism studios, similar to Oregon, but it's creating that it's not just about giving money to something, it's really about creating that vision and supporting that vision. And then once that's really developed, that could be bringing in experts. Like if you wanted to put together a food trail, it's about bringing in experts who have done that before in other states or other regions to help share with you how to really go about that. And then once we have that, then we can talk about the funding and go from there. We also are going to be putting together educational programs. That is part of your survey. Will be asking you, what do you guys need if you're a small business? What kind of workshops would be useful to you? So we can bring in an expert to talk about whether it's financial planning or website marketing or grant writing. What is it that you guys need specifically that we could then put together a workshop, maybe travels around the state, either virtually or actually in person, that would help support your business or organization. And yeah, so we have a lot coming down the line. We're also working with scenic byways, I think it was mentioned, and putting together a state byway strategic plan. And there's just so many exciting things happening all at once, and it's we're just so happy that you guys were able to be a part of it today, and look forward to working with you all in the future and hopefully expanding this community in this effort. So thank you all again.
Great. Thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day. and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.